Moonlight spilled across the desert floor like silver water, cold and lonesome. Clara Boone rode slow, her mare's hooves striking soft against the sand, as if even the horse knew this was no hour for company. The wind carried the smell of sagebrush and distant rain. It was the kind of night when a person could almost believe the earth had gone still, holding its breath. Then she heard it. A voice, broken, ragged, hardly more than a whisper. "Just kill me fast." She froze, reins tight in her hands, eyes scanning the shadows between the rocks. Her breath rose quick in the silence, and then she saw him, lying crumpled in the dust beneath a half-torn blanket, his chest heaving like a bellows near spent. He was more ghost than man, face hollowed by hunger and pain. Clara slid from her saddle, boots crunching on the dry earth. She knelt beside him, hesitant fingers reaching for the blanket. When she pulled it back, the breath caught sharp in her throat. Scars, burns, wounds carved so deep it was a wonder he still breathed at all. The cruelty upon his body was not the wild's doing but men's. Symbols branded into his skin, each mark a story of humiliation. Clara stumbled back, heart pounding, horror tightening her throat. The man's eyes flickered open, blue but clouded. "Now you've seen, now you'll leave me," he rasped, almost grateful. "Spare me the shame." But Clara Boone, cursed by her own past, could not turn away. She pressed her palm to her mouth, then drew in a shuddering breath. "No," she whispered, "not like this." She slid her arms beneath him, feeling the weight of his body drag against her strength. With effort and trembling resolve, she heaved him onto her horse. The mare shifted, protesting, but Clara steadied her. The cowboy slumped over the saddle horn, murmuring in broken fragments about things she could not yet understand. By the time she led the horse into town, dawn was pushing against the horizon. The streets were quiet, lanterns dimming, but eyes still watched, always watching. From behind shuttered windows and crooked porches, the townsfolk stirred, curiosity sharpening to gossip the moment they saw her. Clara Boone, the girl with a ruined reputation, dragging in a near-dead stranger like some bad omen. Sheriff Amos Harlan stepped out from his office, hat low against the rising sun. His face was carved with suspicion. "Clara," he said, voice firm but not unkind, "you don't want to be tied to that kind of trouble." She met his gaze jaw tight. "He's dying. That's all that matters." The sheriff studied her a long while, then shifted aside. "Your burden, then." She led the stranger to her small cabin at the edge of town, a place already marked by whispers. Inside, she lit the lantern, the flame trembling like her hands. She laid him on the cot, pulled away the filthy blanket, and saw the truth of his brokenness. The hours stretched. She boiled water, tore strips from her own dress to make bandages. The sound of cloth against skin, the hiss of steam, the sharp sting of herbs filled the silence. When she reached for his chest, he flinched, eyes blazing with sudden shame. "Don't look at me," he hissed. "Don't. You'll think less of me when you see." Clara's throat ached. She did not answer. Instead, she hummed, soft, low, a tune her mother once sang before leaving this world. It was a small offering, wordless and steady. Slowly, his grip eased, his eyes closed, and his breath fell into uneasy rest. For days she tended him, while outside the gossip swelled. Women at the well whispered that Clara had found herself a convict. Men on the boardwalk muttered she'd taken in a madman. But she stayed, washing blood from his skin, changing his bandages, coaxing life back into his body. Then one night, as thunder rolled over the plains and rain hammered her roof, Eli Cutter woke screaming. His hand shot out, iron strong despite his weakness, clamping around Clara's wrist. His eyes were wild, lost to fever. "End it," he begged, dragging her close. "End it now. You don't know what they did. You don't know what's carved into me." His words shook her, but Clara held fast. The storm roared outside as she reached for the blanket. He kept pulling tight around himself. "No more hiding," she whispered, and with both hands she tore it back. For the first time she saw all of him. Every wound, every scar, the map of his torment laid bare. Her knees buckled. She staggered back, tears filling her eyes, horror not at his body, but at the cruelty the world had carved into him. Eli turned his face away, trembling, certain she would flee. But Clara Boone, though her heart quaked, did not leave. She sank into the chair by his bed, buried her face in her hands, and whispered into the storm, "God help us both." And for the first time since she found him in the dirt, she knew she would not walk away. The rain passed, but the air in town stayed heavy, swollen with whispers. Clara Boone felt it every time she fetched water, every time her boots touched the boardwalk. Folks didn't have to speak loud. She could hear it in the tilt of their heads, the curl of their lips. That poor fool's gonna drag her down. She's cursed already. Now she's keeping a ghost. Inside her cabin, Eli Cutter healed in small ways. His color returned, though the scars across his body stayed like cruel handwriting on skin. He moved slow, but he moved, fetching firewood, patching her roof, mending a crooked hinge with trembling hands that still remembered craft. Clara watched in silence, half astonished, half afraid. One evening as dusk painted the sky purple, he stopped his work and leaned against the fence, breath short. She stepped toward him, reaching to help, but he raised a hand. "Don't," he said. His voice was quiet, almost ashamed. "I ain't used to anyone staying. Feels wrong, somehow." Clara studied him, the wind tugging her hair loose. "Maybe it just feels new," she answered. "New don't have to mean wrong." He turned then, the shadow of a man who had carried too much shame, eyes softening just enough for her to glimpse the boy he must have been before the scars. But the town would not forgive. Sheriff Amos rode out one afternoon, reining his horse in tight before Clara's cabin. Dust rose in a tired cloud. "Clara," he called, voice heavy. "This can't go on. That man's past, it'll ruin you." She stepped out, arms crossed against her chest. "And what about me, Sheriff? Wasn't I ruined already, long before he came limping into my life?" The lawman shifted in his saddle, jaw working. "He rode with a bad crew once. Left him branded. You know what folks will say, that a man marked like that don't deserve saving." Clara's chin lifted. Her voice trembled, but her words were iron. "He's got more honor bleeding on my floor than most of them, standing tall in town. Let them talk." Eli heard every word from the shadow of the doorway. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a ghost. Still, the true test came swift. A week later, word spread that bandits rode near, stagecoach thieves, mean and reckless, ready to bleed the road dry. Sheriff Amos called every able-bodied man to arms, though courage was scarce. When Eli Cutter stepped into the street, scars showing beneath his open shirt, laughter broke out among the men. The scarred coward. He'll run faster than the horses. Clara stood beside him, her presence like a hand steadying his spine. She said nothing, only looked at him as though he still had a choice to make about who he was. And Eli chose. The fight came fast, gunfire cracking like thunder along the stage road. Dust choked the air, horses screaming, men shouting. Eli rode, and despite the fire in his bones, every scar burning like fresh flame. He didn't kill, though he could have. Instead, in the chaos, he saw a boy, no older than 12, tumble beneath the pounding hooves of a runaway horse. Without thought, Eli flung himself from his saddle, body colliding with the child's, shielding him as hooves crashed down inches away. Gunsmoke stung his eyes. Pain ripped through him. But when the dust settled, the boy lived, trembling, wide-eyed, clutched to Eli's chest. The bandits fled, the town saved, and silence fell, heavy and stunned. Sheriff Amos rode up, dismounting slow. His gaze swept over the battered man in the dirt, then shifted to Clara standing a few paces away, hands pressed to her mouth. The sheriff touched the brim of his hat, a quiet gesture, one the whole town noticed. Respect. By nightfall, Eli was carried back to Clara's cabin, broken anew but alive. She tended him by lantern light, her hands steady despite the tears on her cheeks. When his eyes opened, weary but clear, she whispered, "You came back to me." He tried to speak, but words faltered. Instead, he reached for her hand, and she let him keep it. The town still talked, but softer now. The whispers no longer cut like knives. They carried a hint of wonder, of reluctant respect. Days later, Clara and Eli walked the dusty street together. Not triumphant, not shining heroes, but steady, side by side. Two broken souls no longer hiding. And if you had been there, watching, You might have seen it too, that fragile, stubborn dignity blooming where shame once lived. I tell you this because life will carve its marks into us all. Some scars run deep, some shame burns hot, and the world will say you are unworthy. But sometimes grace arrives not in a miracle, not in grand redemption, but in the quiet hand that chooses to stay. And maybe salvation is not the erasing of scars, but the courage to be seen with them,